Good morning, Lourdes.
Good morning, Maria. How are you?
I'm doing great today. I'm doing great. How about you? How are you today?
Terrific.
Good, good. So we have an exciting show today. We're going to do a continuation.
Yes. Yes. Today, we're sharing some guidance on rewriting your love story. So let's shift from what's wrong to what's strong. Healing isn't just about fixing old wounds. It's about recognizing the strengths you've developed along the way. So begin with identifying your strengths and how they show up in your love life. So ask yourself, what are my values? Do I value honesty, fairness, kindness, loyalty, teamwork, just to name a few? Then ask yourself, how do these strengths show up in my relationship? For example, if kindness is your strength, how can you apply it to yourself in love?
Right. And rewriting your love narrative. Instead of, I always attract emotionally unavailable people. Try, I'm learning to recognize and choose emotionally available partners because I value deep connection. The way we talk to ourselves changes how we see ourselves, and that shifts everything. Our perspective determines what we notice and how we see things. And we talk about this often about our perspective. And again, it's that reticular activating system. What you decide to notice is what you're going to notice, but you're deciding.
Right. And then coming back to the self-talk, it's so important. I mean, the words that you use when you're talking to yourself really are a determining factor in the actions that you're going to take. They build belief, and that is a determining factor for the actions that you'll engage in, whether or not you'll even try. If you keep telling yourself, I'll never succeed in, no, in math.
Still with the math, Lou? Still with the math?
No, not really.
That's an easy one. I think a lot of people have that.
Oh, math was a killer for me. I hate, truth be told, I hated math. I hated math all through, grade school, high school, college. I avoided it like the plague. And then I had to come to terms with it. But part of it was my self-dialogue, because I lacked the self-belief in my ability to overcome those challenges. But good news is I did. I was able to shift my perspective and see it as, with a growth mindset, if I apply myself over and over and over again for long periods of times, that's what it took for me, I was able to, ace that statistics class. So, but it's crucially important, the things that you say to yourself. And so don't skip over this part.
Right.
And I digressed again. That is just the nature of things. So in the context of relationships, remember to practice self-compassion. And this goes hand in hand with the self-talk. If you're brutalizing yourself in self-talk, that's the opposite of self-compassion. But when triggers arise, speak to yourself like a loving friend. Treat yourself like you would a dear friend of yours, and replace "I always ruin relationships" with "I'm growing and every step counts," because it does. And soothe your childhood wounds with self-compassion meditations.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend engaging in meditation and combining it with self-compassion meditations.
Definitely. And then the next step is healing exercises for transforming wounds into strengths. And this is one of my favorites. It's something that we need to practice if we're having issues, that inner child letter. So write a letter to your inner child and your younger self and offer love, offer the safety, the validation that you needed back then. Often we ask, what is it that you needed then that you didn't get? Because our subconscious doesn't understand time. We can heal by revisiting and just giving ourselves what we needed back then. And the other thing is, you deserve to be heard. So allowing that part of you to know that you're listening now. It's really about reconnecting with those parts of us that experience the abandonment, the rejection, the shame, or even worse. And if you've read, Gabor Mate or Edith Eger or any current psychology literature or self-help literature, again, our inner dialogue is paramount in how we feel and accept love in our lives. How we love ourselves, like who we are for ourselves, will show up who we are in relationship, how we allow love in, and how we give love back. And sometimes the love that we're missing is because we're not giving ourselves love.
Right. And sometimes it's a matter of feeling unworthy or not believing that we deserve love, that we are lovable. And so that is worth looking at and spending time with and healing. It is possible to heal those beliefs and perceptions. Another important step is to revisit how we were parented and engage in some reparenting practices. So the next time you're triggered, pause and ask yourself, what is this bringing up in me? And what does my inner child need right now in this moment? And then give that to yourself. Maybe it's a deep breath. Maybe it's a hug, some compassion, some patience. Maybe it's a reminder, I am safe now. Healing starts with tiny moments like this.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to take a moment to hear yourself, right? And relationship rituals for emotional safety, right? Healthy love is built through consistent small actions. So try creating a weekly or even a daily ritual that fosters security and love, like a gratitude journal or a check-in conversations with your partner, or even small mindful touches. These small actions that allow you to connect and reaffirm that you're loved. And one other thing about feeling unworthy, there's a difference between how maybe you raise your kids and how you were raised. And during the time that I was being raised, kids were not to be heard, right? Always told to go into another room. And at the time, that as a child, you might feel rejected. I certainly felt rejected because of that. And you have to understand that it has nothing to do with you. It's not about your worth. It's about what they subscribed to. It's about what their values were. And we don't judge our parents because they're living their own lives under the same, they have different values, they have different circumstances, and they did the best that they could, under the circumstances and perspectives that they had. And just because their perspectives didn't allow them to show and embrace love in you doesn't mean that you're not lovable. It means that they could only give the love that they gave to themselves. It was about their limiting beliefs, not about you at all, because we're all just worthy. It's intrinsic.
I will definitely agree with that. We are all worthy. It's intrinsic. With regards to parenting, as a parent myself, and having been parented myself, right? So there's two different paths that one can take. one can either repeat the patterns of their parents, and like Maria said, I also grew up in an environment where children were, not to be seen and heard, right? And so that can really lead to a sense of a lack of importance, right?
Mhm.
I don't matter. So as a parent, you can have that experience with your own parents and then say, you know what? I don't want that for my kids. And then you diverge and you purposefully do something else. And, nobody's talking about perfection here, because perfection does not exist, least of all in parenting. But,
Mhm.
sometimes you are aware of the patterns and you make a conscious effort to improve upon what you had. And so I think it's not either or, it's just, it's an individual choice, really. But again, I digress.
That's okay.
So let's turn our attention to boundaries, attachment, and love as a practice, bringing awareness to what attachment looks like for you. So, do you lean anxious, avoidant, or secure? Understanding your attachment style helps you to shift toward secure love, where love feels safe and connection is mutual.
Right. And boundaries as self-love. So let's reframe how we see boundaries. Boundaries aren't about walls. They're about doors. They allow you to go in and out based on what you feel is right about letting certain people in, letting certain situations in, and keeping the wrong people and situations and patterns out of your life. And a great boundary could sound like, I can be loving and still say no to things that don't align with my values, or things that drain me. I mean, there are people that, just because somebody else doesn't use boundaries doesn't mean that you have to stop using boundaries. If somebody's oversharing, if you can say, hey, I'm very compassionate about what you're saying, but I don't think it's appropriate to have this conversation, especially at a cocktail party, because there are people that overshare, and it's okay for you to say, hey, why don't we have a conversation later? Or, I'm not comfortable with that, and just leave it at that. As Lourdes said last time, no is a complete sentence, and you can definitely use it when you're putting in your boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And the picture that you painted just now with someone oversharing, it's don't go into a reflexive action of, oh, because they shared something deeply personal, I have to as well. It's important to share with people that are safe, not just because they've shared.
Mhm.
There's an important distinction that needs to be made there. So overall, consider love a practice, not a destination. Love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, learning, and choosing connection over fear, even when it's scary. And some days you'll thrive, some days you'll slip into old patterns, and that's okay. Keep choosing love over fear, and you'll see everything starts to change and shift.
So, beginning this week, right? Just try one thing. Pay attention to the stories you tell yourself about love. Notice when old beliefs try to run the show, and gently remind yourself that I get to write my own story now because I do.
Absolutely. Great place to end it, Maria.
Thank you.